Princess Glura pressed her face against the crystalline viewport of her chambers, watching the sleek transport ships descend through Velar Prime's pristine atmosphere. Each vessel carried delegates from across the galaxy, all arriving for the Galactic Unity Summit. Her pale blue skin caught the reflection of the twin suns, and she absently tucked a strand of her vibrant red curls behind her ear. Still dreaming of belonging somewhere, sister, the voice dripped with disdain, Glura didn't turn to face her brother, Prince Velter, whose perfectly sculpted form embodied everything their species valued. Where he was angular and sharp, she was soft and rounded. Where his movements were swift and precise, hers were slow and deliberate. Her gelatinous body pulsed gently with emotion, a trait that made her even more of an outcast among the rigid Valarians. "The delegates have arrived," she said quietly, her voice carrying the musical quality her people possessed, though even that seemed muted in her shame. "Yes, and Father expects you to make an appearance. Try not to embarrass us more than usual." Velter's footsteps clicked away on the polished floor, leaving her alone with her reflection. Glura had long ago stopped trying to understand why she was so different. The royal geneticists claimed she was a throwback to their species' ancient past before they had evolved into their current elegant forms. While her family ruled through beauty and perfection, she existed as a living reminder of what they once were, something primitive and unrefined. The palace corridors buzzed with activity as servants prepared for the evening's festivities. Glura made her way through the halls, her presence causing whispers and barely concealed looks of disgust. She had learned to move along the walls, trying to make herself invisible, but her soft, undulating form made stealth impossible. In the grand preparation chamber, she found her ceremonial gown a flowing creation designed to minimize her unusual silhouette. As she dressed, her personal attendant, Kira, worked in uncomfortable silence. "Your Highness," Kira finally spoke, her voice carefully neutral. "Perhaps you might consider remaining in your chambers tonight. The delegates are from such important worlds." The suggestion cut deep, though Glura had expected it. Even her servants thought her presence would be shameful. She simply nodded, understanding the unspoken message. "You don't belong here." But duty called, and despite everything, she was still royalty. The transport bay hummed with activity as the human delegation disembarked. Sergeant Devon Cross adjusted his dress uniform and scanned the ornate receiving area with professional eyes. Unlike the other species representatives who arrived in elaborate ceremonial gear, the human contingent was notably practical, their focus on function over form. "Remember, we're here to protect Ambassador Helena, not to gawk at the pretty aliens," Devon reminded his team. His weathered face bore the scars of countless missions, and his graying temples spoke 2 years of service. "Have you seen the Valarians yet, Sarge?" Private Torres whispered. "They look like living sculptures." Devon had seen the files. Velar Prime was renowned for producing the galaxy's most beautiful beings, their entire culture built around aesthetic perfection. It seemed like an odd choice for hosting a Unity Summit, but politics was above his pay grade. As they were escorted through the palace, Devon couldn't help but notice the cold perfection of everything around them. Every surface gleamed, every angle was calculated, every being they passed moved with an almost mechanical grace. It was beautiful, certainly, but there was something unsettling about such relentless perfection. "The evening's festivities will begin shortly," their Valarian guide announced, his voice carrying musical undertones. "All delegates are expected to attend the reception in the Grand Harmony Hall." Devon nodded, already mentally mapping exit routes and security protocols. He had no idea that this assignment would change everything he thought he knew about beauty, acceptance, and what it meant to be human. The Grand Harmony Hall sparkled with bioluminescent displays, its soaring ceiling reflecting the light of 1,000 species representatives. Devon positioned himself strategically near Ambassador Helena, his eyes constantly scanning the crowd. While she mingled with dignitaries from across the galaxy, the Valarians were indeed as stunning as reported, tall, graceful beings who moved like liquid poetry. Their conversations flowed in harmonious tones that seemed to make the very air shimmer. Devon found himself impressed despite his military pragmatism, though something about their perfect uniformity felt oddly hollow. "Ah, there she is," He heard someone whisper in Galactic Standard, followed by barely suppressed laughter. The Blob Princess. Devon's attention sharpened, following the direction of the cruel gazes. In a shadowed alcove near the far wall sat a figure that couldn't have been more different from the other Valarians. Where they were sharp angles and flowing lines, she was soft curves and gentle undulations. Her pale blue skin seemed to glow faintly in the dim light, and her magnificent red curls created a striking contrast that took his breath away. Princess Glura sat alone, her hands folded in her lap, her gelatinous form trembling slightly under the harsh fluorescent spotlights that seemed deliberately positioned to emphasize her differences. Devon watched as delegates would approach her location, only to veer away at the last moment, their faces showing poorly concealed disgust. "Look how she quivers," another voice snickered. Like frightened pudding, Devon felt his jaw clench. Throughout his military career, he'd seen enough ugliness both in war and in the way people treated each other. This casual cruelty toward someone who appeared to be doing nothing but existing quietly struck him as particularly vile. The orchestra began to play, and couples started to form on the dance floor. Devon watched as every other royal and dignitary found partners, their movements creating a kaleidoscope of interspecies diplomacy through dance. Yet Princess Glura remained seated, her pale blue skin now pulsing with what he could only interpret as deep sadness. "The poor thing probably doesn't even know how to dance properly," someone commented loudly enough for her to hear. "Can you imagine that blob trying to move gracefully?" That was enough. Devon straightened his uniform jacket and began walking across the ballroom floor. Conversations quieted as the human sergeant made his way directly toward the isolated princess, his boots clicking against the polished surface with military precision. Ambassador Helena caught his eye and raised an eyebrow questioningly, but Devon gave her a subtle nod that indicated he knew what he was doing. She'd worked with him long enough to trust his judgment, even when it seemed unconventional. The laughter and whispers died completely as Devon approached Princess Glura's alcove. She looked up at him with eyes that held depths of intelligence and pain that made his chest tighten. Her gaze was cautious, expecting yet another cruel joke or dismissive gesture. Instead, Devon came to a stop directly in front of her and executed a perfect formal bow. When he straightened, he extended his hand with the same respect he would show any dignitary. "Your Highness," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the now silent hall. "May I have this dance?" The silence stretched like a held breath. Princess Glura stared at his offered hand as if it were something magical and impossible. Her pale blue skin began to shimmer slightly, the gentle pulsing of her gelatinous form shifting to a rhythm that seemed almost like wonder. Devon waited patiently, his hand steady, his expression kind but serious. He wasn't doing this as a joke or a gesture of pity. Something about her quiet dignity and the grace with which she endured such cruelty spoke to him on a level he didn't fully understand. Slowly, trembling with what might have been hope or terror, Princess Glura reached out with her own hand. Her touch was warm and surprisingly firm, her skin softer than silk, but with an underlying strength that surprised him. As their hands connected, something extraordinary happened. A gentle glow began to emanate from her skin where they touched, spreading slowly up her arm like starlight flowing through her veins. The assembled delegates gasped audibly as the light continued to spread, transforming her appearance in ways that defied explanation. Her gelatinous form seemed to become more solid, more defined, while maintaining its inherent softness. The trembling that had marked her with fear now became something else entirely, a vibrant energy that made her literally radiant. Devon felt the change as much as saw it, a warmth spreading through his own body as if her transformation were somehow connected to him. He squeezed her hand gently and smiled. "Shall we?" he asked softly. Princess Glura rose from her seat with newfound grace, the luminescence spreading across her entire form as Devon led her onto the dance floor. The assembled delegates parted like water, their expressions ranging from shock to awe as the unlikely pair took their place at the center of the grand ballroom. The orchestra, momentarily stunned into silence, resumed playing at a gesture from the conductor. The melody was a traditional Valarian waltz, but as Devon placed his hand on Glura's waist and she rested her palm on his shoulder, Something magical began to unfold. "I should warn you," Glura whispered, her musical voice barely audible above. "The music, I've never actually danced with a partner before." Devon smiled, feeling the warmth of her glow intensifying where their bodies were closest. "Then we'll learn together. Just follow my lead and trust yourself." As they began to move, Glura's natural rhythm became apparent. Her gelatinous form, which had seemed so awkward and cumbersome when she was seated alone, now flowed like liquid music. Each step sent ripples of light through her pale blue skin, creating patterns that shifted and swirled in harmony with the melody. The transformation was breathtaking. What had appeared formless and ungainly revealed itself to be something far more profound, a being whose very essence responded to the emotions around her. Devon's genuine kindness and respect acted like a catalyst, unlocking beauty that had been hidden by fear and rejection. "You're glowing," Devon murmured as they turned together, his hand firmly supporting her as she moved with increasing confidence. "It's you," she replied, her red curls catching the light as she looked up at him with wonder. "My people, we respond to genuine emotion. Affection, kindness, love. It makes us luminescent. But I've never experienced it before, not like this." Round them, the other dancers had stopped to watch. Even the proud Valarian royalty stood transfixed as the princess they had mocked transformed into something magnificent. Her pale blue skin now shimmered with opalescent hues that shifted from silver to gold, to deep sapphire with each movement. Her form, while still soft and curvaceous, had gained definition and elegance that made their own rigid perfection seem almost mechanical by comparison. Prince Velter stood at the edge of the crowd, his perfect features twisted with an expression Devon couldn't quite read. Surprise, certainly, but also something that might have been shame. "How is this possible?" Ambassador Helena approached the Valarian king, her diplomatic training keeping her voice carefully neutral despite her obvious amazement. King Murden, Glura's father, watched his daughter with eyes that seemed to be seeing her clearly for the first time in years. "The ancient texts speak of our ancestors," he said slowly, his voice carrying across the hushed ballroom. "Before we evolved into our current forms, we were beings of pure emotional resonance. We thought that trait had been bred out of our bloodline centuries ago." "You mean she's not a genetic throwback?" Devon called out as he spun Glura gently, her laughter creating sparkles of light in the air around them. "She's what you used to be before you forgot how to feel." The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. Several Valarian nobles shifted uncomfortably, their perfect faces unable to mask the truth in Devon's words. As the waltz reached its crescendo, Devon lifted Glura slightly, her radiant form spinning in his arms like a living star. When he set her down, they were both breathing heavily, their eyes locked in a moment of perfect understanding. "You were always beautiful," Devon said, loud enough for everyone to hear but speaking directly to her. They just didn't know how to look. Glura's glow intensified until she was almost too bright to look at directly. But instead of the harsh glare they expected, her light was warm and inviting. In that moment, everyone in the Grand Harmony Hall could see what Devon had recognized from the beginning. Not a malformed outcast, but a being of extraordinary beauty whose radiance came from within. The music ended, but Devon and Glura remained in each other's arms, neither willing to break the connection that had revealed so much truth. Around them, delegates from 100 worlds stood in awed silence, witnessing something far more significant than diplomatic pleasantries. "Your Highness," one of the Zentari delegates stepped forward, his crystalline form refracting Glura's light into rainbow patterns. "We have legends of beings like you among our people, light bearers who could illuminate the darkness in others' souls. We thought they were myths." More delegates began to approach, their earlier disdain replaced by curiosity and respect. The Aquarian ambassador, her scaled features shimmering with bioluminescence, bowed deeply. "Your transformation reminds us that beauty takes many forms across the galaxy. We would be honored to learn more about your people's true heritage." Devon felt Glura's hand tighten in his as the attention overwhelmed her, but her glow remained steady. She was no longer the frightened, isolated princess who had hidden in the shadows. In his arms, with his acceptance giving her strength, She had become exactly what she was always meant to be, a bridge between the past and future. A reminder that true beauty comes from connection and understanding. As applause finally broke the spell, Devon leaned close to her ear. "Would you like to get some fresh air? I think we've given them enough to talk about for one evening." Her smile was radiant as she nodded, and together they walked from the ballroom, leaving behind a room full of beings who would never again mistake true beauty for mere physical perfection. The palace's moon garden offered blessed privacy after the overwhelming attention of the ballroom. Crystalline flowers bloomed in the light of Velar Prime's twin moons, their petals chiming softly in the night breeze. Devon and Glura walked the winding paths in comfortable silence, her gentle glow providing additional illumination that made the garden seem magical. "I can't believe what happened in there," Glura said finally, settling onto a bench beside a fountain that played music instead of water. Her luminescence had dimmed to a soft, steady radiance that seemed more natural now, as if she were finally comfortable in her own skin. Devon sat beside her, close enough that their knees touched. "You can't believe you're beautiful, because I could see it the moment I laid eyes on you." She turned to face him, her red curls catching the moonlight. "No one has ever looked at me the way you did tonight, like I was worth something." "You're worth everything," Devon replied, his voice rough with emotion. "Your own people are fools if they can't see that." Glura's glow flickered, pulsing gently with her heartbeat. "My species responds to emotional truth. When someone lies or feels disgust, we can sense it. It makes us dull, gray, lifeless. But when someone feels genuine affection," she gestured to her luminescent skin, "this is what we become." "So you've been living surrounded by people who made you feel worthless," Devon said, anger coloring his tone. "No wonder you were hiding. I learned early that my presence made others uncomfortable. My parents, my brother, the court, they all saw me as a failure, a reminder of our primitive past. I began to believe they were right." Her voice caught slightly. "Until tonight." Devon reached out and gently touched her cheek, marveling at the softness of her skin and the way it brightened under his caress. "They weren't right. They were terrified." "Terrified of what?" "Of feeling something real. Of remembering what it's like to connect with another being on a level deeper than surface beauty." His thumb traced along her jawline, and she leaned into his touch like a flower turning toward sunlight. "You're not a throwback, Glura. You're evolved beyond them." Her eyes closed as she savored the sensation of his touch, her whole body glowing more brightly. When she opened them again, they were filled with a vulnerability that made Devon's chest tighten. "I've never felt anything like this before," she whispered. "When you touch me, it's like I'm finally alive." Devon's hand moved to cup the back of her neck, his fingers tangling in her curls. "I've never felt anything like this either. From the moment I saw you sitting alone, something in me recognized something in you." "What did you see?" "Strength, dignity, beauty that had nothing to do with what you looked like and everything to do with who you are." He leaned closer, his breath warm against her skin. "I saw someone worth fighting for." Their lips met in a kiss that was tender and desperate at the same time. Glura's luminescence flared like a star being born, waves of light cascading across her skin as she pressed closer to him. Devon felt the warmth of her glow enveloping them both, a physical manifestation of the emotional connection building between them. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. Glura's form had become even more radiant. Her pale blue skin now shot through with veins of gold and silver that pulsed with her heartbeat. "Is this what love feels like?" she asked, her voice filled with wonder. Devon's answer was to kiss her. Again, deeper this time, his hands exploring the curves of her waist and the soft skin of her arms. She responded eagerly, her gelatinous form molding against him in ways that felt perfectly natural and incredibly intimate. "I want to show you something," Glura said when they paused for breath. She stood and took his hand, leading him to a more secluded part of the garden where flowering vines created a natural alcove. "What is it?" Devon asked, though he followed willingly. "My people have a way of sharing emotions directly, skin to skin. It's incredibly intimate, more so than any physical act." She turned to face him, her glow soft but steady. "I want to share what I'm feeling with you, if you let me." Devon's answer was to pull her into his arms, his hands skimming over her shoulders and down her back, where his skin touched hers. Her luminescence intensified, creating patterns of light that seemed to dance between them. "Show me," he whispered against her ear. Glura placed her palms flat against his chest, over his heart. Immediately, warmth spread through Devon's body, but it was more than physical. He could feel her emotions as if they were his only years of loneliness and rejection. The wonder of discovering her own beauty, the overwhelming joy of being accepted for who she truly was. In return, she felt his memories, the battles he'd fought, the losses he'd endured, the moment he'd decided to cross that ballroom floor because he couldn't stand to see her pain. She felt his protective instincts, his growing love, his desire to shield her from anyone who would hurt her. They stood locked in that intimate embrace, sharing not just touch but the very essence of who they were. Devon had never experienced anything so profound, so completely vulnerable yet safe at the same time. "I love you," he said, the words coming from someplace deeper than conscious thought. "I love you too," she replied, her glow now so bright it seemed to turn the entire garden into a cathedral of light. They spent the rest of the night in each other's arms, talking and touching and discovering the depths of their connection. For the first time in her life, Glura felt truly beautiful, and for the first time in his, Devon understood what it meant to love someone not despite their differences, but because of them. Dawn broke over Velar Prime with crystalline clarity, finding Devon and Glura still entwined in the moon garden. Her glow had settled into a steady, warm radiance that seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. They had talked through the night, sharing stories, dreams, and gentle caresses that spoke of a connection deeper than either had thought possible. "We should probably head back," Devon murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. "The summit continues today, and people will be looking for both of us." Glura sighed contentedly, reluctant to leave their private sanctuary. "I don't want this to end. What happens when the summit is over, when you have to return to Earth?" Devon's arms tightened around her. "Then you come with me, if you want to. Leave Velar Prime." The possibility seemed both terrifying and exhilarating. "I've never been anywhere else. There's a whole galaxy out there, Glura. Worlds where beauty isn't defined by rigid standards, where diversity is celebrated." He tilted her chin up so she could see the sincerity in his eyes. "Where you could be appreciated for the miracle you are." Before she could respond, the sound of approaching footsteps made them both turn. King Myrddin emerged from the garden path, his expression unreadable. Devon immediately moved to position himself protectively in front of Glura, but she placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Father," she said, her voice steady despite the nervous flutter in her luminescence. The Velaryon king studied them, both for a long moment. "The entire palace is talking about last night's display," he said finally. "Half the court is scandalized, the other half is fascinated." "I'm sorry if our dancing caused a disruption to your summit," Devon replied formally, though his tone made it clear he wasn't actually sorry at all. To their surprise, King Myrddin's expression softened. "Don't apologize, Sergeant Cross. You've shown us something we had forgotten." He looked at his daughter with what might have been pride. "Our ancient histories speak of a time when our people were living light, when emotion and beauty were one and the same. We evolved past that, we thought, became more sophisticated, more refined. You became more closed off," Glura said quietly, "more afraid of genuine feeling." Her father nodded slowly. "Perhaps we did. Watching you last night, seeing what you became when someone truly saw you." He paused, struggling with words. "I realized I haven't really looked at my own daughter in years. I saw only what I thought was a failure instead of recognizing a gift." Tears sparkled in Glura's eyes, making her glow shimmer like starlight. "On water, Father, there's more," he continued. "The Galactic Council has been discussing your transformation. They're fascinated by the implications a species that responds to emotional truth, that can literally illuminate deception, and shine with authentic connection. They want to establish formal diplomatic relations with our people, specifically requesting you as our primary ambassador." Devon felt Glura's surprise and excitement through their continued connection. "An ambassador? You would travel between worlds, representing not just Velar Prime, but the possibility of deeper understanding between species. King Murden smiled at Devon. I believe they were hoping your human partner might be willing to serve as your security detail. More than willing, Devon said immediately, squeezing Glura's hand. The political implications were staggering, but what mattered more was the look of pure joy on Glura's face. She would no longer be hidden away as an embarrassment. She would be celebrated as exactly what she was meant to be. Later that day, as the summit continued, Devon and Glura made their first official appearance as partners. This time, when she entered the Grand Harmony Hall, it was to applause rather than whispers. Her radiant form drew admiring looks instead of cruel laughter, and Devon felt fierce pride watching her bloom under the positive attention. Your Highness, the Aquarian ambassador approached with a deep bow. We would be honored to host you on our home world. Our people have much to learn about emotional truth. Similar invitations came from delegates across the hall. The Zentari offered to share their crystalline meditation techniques. The Thaxians wanted to explore the scientific implications of her luminescence. And even the notoriously reserved Corathans expressed interest in cultural exchange. Prince Velter approached them as the afternoon sessions concluded. Sister, he said formally, then paused, seeming to struggle with himself. Glura, I owe you an apology. We all do. His sister's glow softened with compassion. You were taught to value only one kind of beauty. It's not entirely your fault, but I should have seen past it. Should have protected you instead of. He gestured helplessly. Instead of being part of the problem. Devon watched the siblings reconcile with satisfaction. This was what he'd hoped for, not just acceptance for Glura, but a change in perspective that might help others. That evening, as they prepared for another formal dinner, Glura stood before her mirror, her reflection no longer a source of shame but of wonder. Devon came up behind her, his hands settling on her waist as he met her eyes in the glass. Any regrets? He asked softly. She leaned back against his chest, her glow enveloping them both. Only that it took so long to find you. We found each other exactly when we were supposed to, he replied, kissing the curve of her neck. And now we have the rest of our lives to explore the galaxy together. The rest of our lives, she repeated, turning in his arms. I like the sound of that. Their kiss was soft and full of promise, a seal on a future that would take them to distant worlds and new adventures. Round them, Glura's light pulsed gently, a beacon of hope that love could indeed conquer all prejudice, fear, and the artificial boundaries that kept beings apart. In the months that followed, their story would become legend across the galaxy. The Blob princess and the human soldier who saw her true beauty, whose love had literally illuminated the darkness of ignorance and shown that acceptance could transform not just individuals, but entire civilizations. But in that moment, in each other's arms, they were simply two beings who had found their perfect match among the stars.